Mm, Testing, testing, perfect. All right, welcome to another coffee tasting. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor, and today we are tasting another single origin coffee by the roasters of Stumptown Coffee. This one is going to be from the single origin of Ethiopia, Suke Kujo, Suke Quto. Sorry, you guys. Um, and this one is going to be a very, very bright cup of coffee. This one's going to be very delicious. And so, for those of you guys who are joining me for the first time, welcome to the coffee tasting. It is an honor to have you. And for those of you who are returning, thank you for returning. It is an honor to have you back, and it means a lot. If you guys haven't had a chance, hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really helps me evolve this channel and make it that much better and add more content. So, thank you guys very much. So, for those of you who are new to the channel, I like to brew my coffee 3 different ways. And that way we get to explore the different flavor notes of the coffee that we wouldn't get to explore if we only brewed it one way. And so with the French press, we're going to get like those bold, intense flavors. With the pour over, we're going to have some of those sediments absorbed in the paper filter. So we're going to get a little bit more of a brighter cup of coffee. And then with the Chemex, we're going to have a very similar cup to the French press, but the flavor note's going to be turned down. It's going to be a very clean, smooth cup of coffee. So with this particular blend of coffee, we're getting notes of crisp notes of lemon lime. So it's going to be very, very bright and citrusy. And so with the pour over, we're going to get a lot of those citrus notes. And then with the French press, we're going to get a little bit more of like the bitter note that this coffee has to offer. So when you brew your coffee, especially on a pour over and a Chemex, you want to pour a little bit of water over the grinds and then you want to let it bloom. And what letting it bloom does is it allows the air that's trapped in between the grinds rise up to the surface of the grinds rather than get trapped at the bottom of the paper filter. Because when it gets trapped at the bottom of the paper filter, we're creating an air barrier and it slows down the brew process of the coffee. And when we slow down the brew process, we're changing the flavor of the coffee and we're going to impact it in a negative way. So making sure that we properly brew our coffee and letting our coffee bloom is a very important part of brewing our pour overs, especially when there's a paper filter involved. So since this one has sweet notes of honey and a lemon lime crisp, I think this one would be a really good iced coffee as well, just like we did with the Rwanda. And so this Friday we are going to be tasting this particular cup of coffee as a iced Chemex to see how well it comes out as a Chemex. The last one that we did with the Rwanda came out really good. We had really smooth notes of melon with that honey sweetness as well. And it had like a really rich, thick texture as well. So it was really, really nice. I really liked it as an iced coffee. And with this one, since this one has the honey notes along with those lemon lime notes, this one would be really good iced. And I bet it would be really good as like a sparkling iced coffee. So I'm going to grab some sparkling water and see how good it does as like a soda. Maybe some of that lemon lime zest will come out with the sparkling, with the carbonation. So the reason why I brew my coffee three different ways is because each different brew process gives you different flavor notes. It's going to bring out different flavors. With the paper filter, we're allowing more oils to pass through and filtering out most of those sediments. And so we're going to get a very oil heavy coffee. And it's those oils is going to enhance those bright citrusy notes. In this case, the lemon lime flavor. With the Chemex, because the Chemex has a triple paper filter, not as many of those oils are going to pass through the filter as they do with the regular paper filter. And because of this, those intense citrus flavors are going to be died down a little bit. And then also our brew time is a little bit longer because the water takes a little bit longer to pass through. So we're going to get a little bit more of that honey sweet flavor. And then the same case is going to be with the French press. But with the French press, it's going to be like the Chemex, but the flavor notes are going to be turned way up. All right, so we're going to plunge the French press now that the allotted time has passed. And then once we plunge the French press, we are going to taste the pour over. All right. So with the Ethiopia Suke Quto, we are getting honey sweetness with lemon lime crisps. So immediately right off the bat, we're definitely getting that lemon lime sweetness off the bat, and then we're getting a little bit of sweet honey notes as well. So it's kind of nice that we're getting all those flavor notes just from the regular pour over. Wow. So we're getting that heavy lime zest from the first initial sip. It definitely has like almost like a Sprite bite to it. Like definitely very bright. Uh, the honey sweetness has a thick quality. It's not as sweet as you uh, would anticipate, but it has like a semi-sweet, thick qualityness to it. But that first initial sip that we get is very bright. You get that strong lime flavor, really good. And that is going to be exceptional as an iced coffee, especially if we get a lot of those bright lime notes. All right. Now we're going to try the French press. With the French press, we're getting a lot of the flavors, almost all the flavors out of the coffee. We could get a little bit more of those oils if we had like a vacuum extraction, but this is going to be as close to that as possible. And so with this, we're getting a lot of the oils and a lot of the sediments. And like I said, we could get more oils out of the grinds if we used a vacuum extraction to extract all the water from the grinds during the brew process. But we don't have that here, so today we are trying the Ethiopia Suke Quto on the French press. And with this, we're going to get a lot more of that honey sweetness, and it's going to be a little bit more balanced with those bright lemon lime zest. So it's kind of interesting. We're still getting some pretty strong lime flavors, not nearly as intense as it was on the pour over. With the pour over, it was like the first thing that impacted your tongue was those lemon lime flavors. Here we're getting a little bit more of a that mellow honey sweetness that takes forward, and then it's kind of washed away by the lemon lime zest. We're getting that melon or that honey sweet, and then as that honey sweet kind of washes away, we get that lemon lime. That is really good, which is very promising for the Chemex because with the Chemex, we're going to get those same quality notes. And if we get those same quality notes in the Chemex, that honey sweetness with that lemon lime wash is going to taste really good over ice because that ice is going to help bring forward some of that lemon lime wash and it's going to make it a very, very bright, sweet iced coffee. So now we are trying the Chemex. With the Chemex, this is going to be a medium coarse grind, and it has a little bit longer contact with the water, but not too long. And there's kind of like a balancing act going on between the pour over, the Chemex, and the French press, between how long the water and the beans are in contact with each other and then the grind in proportion. And so each of these are going to serve a different amount of servings, as well as a different amount of grind and proportion of water. And so, like, well, the pour over is a single serving. I would say the Chemex is about like a serving and a half, maybe two servings if you're having two small cups of coffee. And then with the same with the French press, pretty much you can get about two servings of cup of coffee out of the French press as well. So even though we're almost using twice as much grinds on the French press as we are as the pour over, we are getting two servings out of the French press, while the pour over we're getting just one. That is a surprisingly dark cup of coffee. That those honey notes come forward so strong. And when they're coming forward so strong, it's not as sweet. It's almost it's interesting. It's almost got like a bitter maple flavor. Like if you took like maple that wasn't sweet and that's what you were drinking. This is because the honey normally when we have that sweet honey flavor, it's in contrast to other flavors, and because it's in contrast to other flavors, it makes it taste sweet. But here, because it's so forward, and that's all we're tasting is that those honey notes, it almost gives it a bitter maple flavor. So we get like a bitter maple flavor, which is very interesting. I've never tasted that in a coffee. And then we're left with like a strong lime zest afterwards. Like, so now that my palate is cleared and that bitter maple flavor has cleared, I have like a really strong lime zest flavor, specifically on this side. Very, very interesting. It's got a really strong lemon flavor too. It's just we're tasting that those bitter honey maple flavor at the very beginning. I'm not sure if I like it all that much, just because it's a weird flavor, something I'm not used to. It might be something I can get used to and maybe grow and like, but because it's not going to be a coffee I'm going to always have, it's going to be hard to get used to it. So really interesting cup. If I had to choose a favorite brew method for this particular cup of coffee, I would definitely choose the French press just because we are getting that still sweet honey flavor, not those bitter honey flavors that we are getting with the Chemex, and then we get that wash of the lemon lime. But this Friday we are going to be trying the Chemex of the Ethiopia Suke Quto on the iced variant, and then we're going to try a little bit of sparkling water with it too to see how that changes those lime notes and see if it brings it forward. If it was a bad idea, we'll figure it out and explore together. So now that we've tasted our coffee, we're going to learn a little bit about the Ethiopia Suke Quto. And so the Ethiopia Suke Quto, it's a single origin coffee. And so the cool thing about single origin coffees is we get to learn and explore where the coffee comes from. So with this particular cup of coffee, it comes from it comes from Ethiopia. I'm sorry, I did not write this one down It comes from the Guji region, and so with the Guji region, it began with 5 hectares of land, and so with I believe his name is Tesfaye Bekele. I'm absolutely murdering that name, so I'm terribly sorry to the gentleman who started this farm. And so, anyways, he established the Suke Quto farm in 2005, and then he started to get neighboring farmers into growing coffee. But shortly there was a brush fire, and farmers started to lean away from coffee growing, and they started to grow grains and wheat. But with the grains and wheat, it erodes the soil, and so um, Tesfaye uh, started this thing where to get growers back into growing coffee, he started replanting shade trees because that's what he was all about was all his farms were planted underneath uh, a shade forest, and so he had canopies of trees that blocked some of the sunlight, so allowed some of the sunlight to get through, but wasn't too much to where it cooked the beans at the same time. And so it was like the perfect balanced ratio to keep these cherries to grow. But then that brush fire happened, and then they lost all their shade trees. And so this is when the farmers switched over to the wheat and grain, and they just started growing wheat. But because Tesfaye wanted a more ethically and economically friendly farm to grow from, he wanted to get the farmers back into growing coffee. And so the way he did this was he actually started replanting shade trees throughout the region and in the neighboring farm areas, and having that an incentive to have coffee farmers switch back over to coffee so that they can have a more economically friendly, more environmentally friendly uh, source of income. And so with this, you have a crop that yields a little bit more money, and then at the same time, you can put it back into the ground and you create more fertile soil. And so it's a very a green friendly crop, and so the being able to switch over these crops and make a better sustainability is very important to Svaya Bekele. And so learning the story about how this coffee came about and learning about the story of Tesfaye is very important in dedication to our coffee, and learning about the amount of work and how this coffee came to be. So with this coffee, it started in 2005, almost sparked out of existence because of a brush fire, came back to life because of Tesfaye Bekele's passion for coffee and creating a sustainability not for just himself but the entire community that would end up working on these farms. And so you have this bag of coffee that's not sustaining just a single family, but a single community in the Guji region of Ethiopia. And then when this brush fire happened, you have Tesfaye Bekele's passion that's so strong that he goes out of his way to create incentives for farmers to go back to coffee growing because of the pitfall that growing wheat and grains does on the land. And so by switching over to coffee, it's more sustainable, more economically friendly, and more eco-friendly for the environment. And so with this, we're creating a sustainability for families and the environment, and we're learning about Tesfaye Bekele's passion for coffee and his passion for his community and how he gives back, and how without his passion for coffee, this region wouldn't be as growing as much as it is today. And uh, another part of this coffee as well is Stumptown has been partnered with this particular region since 2010. So they have been partners with the Stumptown and the Guji region, or Ethiopia Suke Quto, have been partners with each other and been directly trading coffee since 2010, which is important as well because when you have direct trade from a coffee roaster to uh, a farm or a plantation, uh, you see the farmers getting more money rather than the farmers finding a local roaster or a central roasting plant, and then that roasting plant distributing to uh, smaller coffee companies where the coffee growers don't get as much money. So with this direct trade, not only are we learning the story of the farmers, but a little bit of our money is making its way into the farmer's pocket and all the people who work on the farm. And so that's very important with this direct trade, kind of weeding out the middleman and, directly sourcing our coffee from the coffee growers. So, very cool. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed the story about the Suke Quto region and Tesfaye Bekele and his passion for coffee and how he saved his region from erosion of soil and just making a better sustainability for all of his community's livelihoods. So thanks again everyone for joining. I hope this inspired you guys to learn a little bit more about coffee. I will see you guys this Friday where we'll be trying the Suke Kuto iced and seeing if we can bring out those lemon lime flavors a little bit more. I'm hoping that those lemon lime flavors come out a lot more in the Chemex as an iced version because those bitter honey notes weren't very desirable. So we're really going to be hopeful for those lemon lime notes. It's going to make a really good iced coffee if it does. So thanks again everyone for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed what we learned today. Have a great day, and I will see you Friday.